The moment Vox opens his eyes again, nothing feels new. And that is the problem. Because rebirth is supposed to wipe the slate clean. But his mind is not a blank screen. It is a fully loaded archive. Every deal, every humiliation, every victory, every second of his rivalry with Alastor burned into him with perfect clarity. And the first thing he realizes is simple. He remembers how he lost, and Vox is not the type to accept a bad ending twice. So instead of rushing back into hell with the same loud confidence and flashy broadcasts, he slows down, studies, calculates, because this time he knows the rules of the game before it even starts. He knows who matters, who doesn't, where power flows, and most importantly, he knows Alastor is not just another overlord. He is the obstacle, the glitch in Vox's perfect system. So Vox begins differently. He builds quietly, no grand announcements, no desperate need for attention. He starts by securing influence in places that no one pays attention to. Minor demons, small networks, forgotten channels. He turns them into his testing ground, refining his control over information. Because Vox understands something now that he didn't fully grasp before. Raw power alone does not win in hell. Perception does. And perception is something he can engineer. Slowly but surely, his signal spreads. Not as a loud broadcast, but as an invisible web. Connecting everything, watching everything, learning everything. And by the time the bigger players even notice, Vox is already everywhere. And this time, when he finally steps into the spotlight, it is not as a desperate entertainer craving validation. It is as a system that cannot be ignored. And this changes everything about his dynamic with the Vs. Because Valentino and Velvet are used to the old Vox, the one who needed them, the one who thrived on chaotic synergy. But this new Vox is different. He still works with them. But now it is strategic, calculated. He leverages Valentino's influence and Velvet's trends without tying his entire identity to them. He keeps control. And that alone makes him more dangerous, because dependency was always his weakness, and now it is gone. And then there is Alastor, the inevitable confrontation. Except this time, Vox does not rush into it blinded by ego. He studies him first, watches his patterns, analyzes his behavior, because Vox knows something crucial. Alastor thrives on unpredictability, on chaos, on being the unknown variable. So Vox does the opposite. He removes variables. He builds a system where even chaos has boundaries, where even someone like Alastor starts to feel contained. And when they finally meet again, the tension is different, because Alastor immediately senses it. This is not the same Vox he humiliated before. This one does not react the same way. He does not lash out. He does not overextend. He listens. He observes. And that alone disrupts the dynamic. Because Alastor expects resistance, expects theatrics, but instead he gets patience. And patience is something far more dangerous, because it means Vox is waiting for the right moment. And that moment comes not through brute force, but through control. Vox begins to reshape Hell's attention economy itself, turning every deal, every conflict, every rise and fall into content that he subtly manipulates. He controls what people see, what they believe, what they fear. And over time, even Alastor starts to notice something unsettling. The narratives around him are shifting. His myth, his legend, it is being reframed, not destroyed, but redirected. And that is something even he cannot ignore, because power in Hell is tied to perception, and Vox is slowly rewriting perception itself. And this creates a different kind of battle, not a direct fight, but a war of influence, a silent chess match where every move is calculated, every outcome predicted. And for the first time, Alastor is forced to adapt, not because he is weaker, but because Vox has changed the battlefield entirely. And the most interesting part of this scenario is what it does to Vox internally. Because having all his memories does not just give him knowledge, it forces him to confront his own flaws, his obsession with validation, his need to be seen, to be acknowledged. And this time he suppresses it, he controls it, but it is still there, lingering beneath the surface. And that creates tension, because no matter how calculated he becomes, Vox is still Vox. He still wants to win, not just strategically, but emotionally. He wants Alastor to acknowledge him, to see him as an equal, maybe even as superior. And that desire becomes the one thing that could still ruin everything. Because if he lets it take control, he risks repeating the same mistakes. And this is where the story gets deeper. Because it is not just about power. It is about whether Vox can truly change, or if he is doomed to fall into the same patterns despite knowing better. And as his influence grows, as his control tightens, as his system becomes more and more dominant, the pressure builds. Because the closer he gets to surpassing Alastor, the harder it becomes to stay patient, to stay calculated, to not rush the final move. And when that moment finally comes, when Vox decides it is time to confront him directly, it is no longer about proving himself in a flashy display of power. It is about executing a plan that has been building from the moment he was reborn. He isolates variables, limits Alastor's unpredictability, forces him into a controlled scenario where even chaos has structure. And for a brief moment it works. Vox gains the upper hand, not through strength but through preparation, through understanding, through evolution. And this is where the timeline splits, because everything depends on one decision. Does Vox stay disciplined? Does he finish the plan without letting his emotions interfere? Or does he slip? Does he seek that validation one last time? Does he push for acknowledgement instead of victory? And that single moment determines everything. Because if he stays disciplined, Vox wins, not by destroying Alastor, but by surpassing him, by proving that control can overcome chaos, that preparation can outplay unpredictability, But if he slips, even for a second, then history repeats itself. Because Alastor only needs one opening, one mistake, one emotional crack to exploit. And Vox knows this. He remembers it. He has lived it. And yet the temptation is still there. Because knowing your flaw is not the same as overcoming it. And that is what makes this version of Vox so compelling. He is not just stronger or smarter. He is aware. And awareness is both his greatest advantage and his greatest burden. Because it means every mistake is no longer ignorance. It is a choice. And as the confrontation reaches its peak, as the tension between control and chaos reaches its breaking point, Vox stands at the edge of two outcomes. One where he finally rewrites his story, and one where he proves that even with all the knowledge in the world, some people are bound to repeat their own narrative. And that is what makes this what if so powerful. Because it is not just about a character getting a second chance, it is about whether that second chance is enough to truly change who they are. Or if they are simply destined to play out the same story with a different level of awareness.